In Chapter 1, Selcha reflects on life as a slave under Miles Karstar's cruel regime at the Arthrin dig site. Her brother, Helot, once punished for curiosity, is now broken, his mind fractured after enduring severe punishment. Selcha feels guilt for his suffering, though her own scars remain a reminder of the horrors. Helot, despite his trauma, has developed an uncanny ability to read and understand symbols from ancient ruins. As they dig, Helot's obsession with finding something important leads them to a hidden chamber filled with ancient books. Selcha senses a greater destiny is calling her brother. In Chapter 2, Selcha encounters an angel named Starve, who observes her with eerie attention, unlike the more passive Maybe. Helot, her brother, defies expectations by remembering the arrangement of books in a chamber, catching the attention of the librarian, a powerful and demanding figure. As the librarian oversees the arrangement of books, Helot assumes control over the overseers, humiliating the slave master, Miles Karstar. Despite the small victory, Selcha knows this will provoke brutal retribution. That night, Helot hints at a plan to use the angel, Starve, to kill all of their captors, including Miles and the overseers. In Chapter 3, Ever, Clovis, and Carol navigate a vast library while seeking Levira's book. Ever confronts Carol about his earlier cryptic words, "I know where to find your girl," but the hope fades as they find no trace of Levira's spirit. The conversation reveals that Levira's ghost was trapped in the assistant for centuries. Despite their tensions, the trio continues forward, avoiding Skier threats. Evar remains consumed by thoughts of Levira, contemplating the futility of his search. The group discovers a giant mechanical golem that seems intent on killing Evar, forcing them to flee. In Chapter 4, Selcha and her brother Helot prepare to escape their captors. They are chosen by a librarian to leave the Arthran dig site and travel with a convoy of wagons carrying books toward the city of Krath. On their journey, Selcha is awed by the vast world and the city's grandeur, including its Kennith inhabitants. Upon reaching the library, they begin unloading books and encounter a mysterious new librarian. This marks the beginning of their new life, but Selcha senses something unsettling as she notices a figure resembling a Kennith, hinting at deeper complexities ahead. In Chapter 5, Kelcha and Helot adjust to life in the library, under the guidance of librarian Selna. They are given their own room and begin their duties, which include learning to read. Selcha learns about the library's mysterious doors, some of which only open for specific species, and the tragic deaths of the previous Gunnar employees. Selcha and Helot are treated with more respect than at the Arthrin dig, but Selcha's anger deepens as she grapples with her past and her new life. While the library offers comfort, it doesn't erase the trauma she's endured, and her resentment grows. In Chapter 6, Evar, Clovis, and Carol flee from a mechanical beast that had been hidden in the library for ages. The creature, once immobile, is now relentlessly pursuing them, destroying everything in its path. As they race through the library, Ever narrowly escapes death but loses sight of Carol, who had fallen. They reach a chamber where the beast continues to destroy everything, but they are saved when a mysterious assistant intervenes, halting the creature and forcing the skier to retreat. The assistant guides them to safety, though its motives remain unclear, and it warns Ever about the danger of ghosts. In Chapter 1, Selcha reflects on life as a slave under Miles Karstar's cruel regime at the Arthrin dig site. Her brother, Helot, once punished for curiosity, is now broken, his mind fractured after enduring severe punishment. Selcha feels guilt for his suffering, though her own scars remain a reminder of the horrors. Helot, despite his trauma, has developed an uncanny ability to read and understand symbols from ancient ruins. As they dig, Helot's obsession with finding something important leads them to a hidden chamber filled with ancient books. Selcha senses a greater destiny is calling her brother. In Chapter 8, Selcha and the trainees, including Lutna, return from exploring the Gunnar chamber. They face a new challenge when the door won't open, and Selcha's attempt to unlock it fails. The librarians express concern, realizing it could take days for help to arrive. They worry about survival, with no clear knowledge of the chamber's layout or the location of the center circle for sustenance. Helot remains calm, stating that thirst would be a greater threat than hunger. Meanwhile, the mysterious presence of Maybe and Starve continues to influence the situation, adding an unsettling layer to the journey. In Chapter 9, as the librarians debate, Selcha and the trainees grow frustrated by the locked door. Marquette eventually leads them to search for the center circle, which would sustain them, but before they begin, the door unexpectedly opens. The assistant, possibly Ute, arrives and engages Yelcha and Hellet in a cryptic conversation about time and existence. He reveals that they are anomalies, dangerous and rare, and could either serve the library as he does or be repaired to stop disrupting time. The assistant offers them a choice: to accept eternity or face a potentially fatal transformation. In Chapter 10, Ever and his siblings, Carol and Clovis, struggle to navigate the labyrinthine chambers of a library-like structure, searching for an exit. They find a door leading to the outside, but the journey is perilous, marked by rubble and abandoned, damaged structures. After much digging, they finally reach the outside, emerging into sunlight. They find themselves in a desolate landscape with ruined buildings, and Ever contemplates the differences between the reality outside and their past experiences. As they explore, they encounter a massive organic structure that appears to be a skier nest, prompting them to flee from potential danger. In Chapter 11, the Kneath, pursued by skier flyers, engage in a swift and deadly battle. The sword-wielding Kneath shatters the first flyer with precision, and within moments, the flyers are defeated. The two larger Kneath take the lead, with the injured ones supported by the shortest. The sword-wielder challenges the knight guarding their retreat. Arpix and his companions, observing the scene, are left in stunned disbelief at the Kneath's skill. This confrontation marks a turning point as they now face new, dangerous allies, and the uncertain potential for survival in the dust grows even more complex. In Chapter 12, Ever, Clovis, and Carol flee from the pursuing skier, heading toward a plateau where they spot a distant light. Upon reaching the plateau, they encounter a group of humans, including Arpix, a familiar face from their past. As they approach, skier creatures appear and surround them, but the group is mysteriously protected by an invisible barrier. Clovis, suspicious of the humans, demands answers from Arpix, who reveals they set the fire to lead the group to safety. Despite the danger, Ever realizes the humans' role in their survival as the skier hesitate, unable to advance. In Chapter 13, Levira confronts Malar after he leaves without her, and they discuss the danger of using the portals separately. Malar saw an escape, a woman in a blue dress, and Levira insists they follow the assistant's instructions to find the book. They argue over which portal to take and eventually step through one together, arriving at a place near Ever. Levira recognizes the book she created, but is unsure if she hid it. As she tries to grab the book, she vanishes into a new story, where she finds herself in a grand dining hall, taking on the role of someone else in a story she doesn't remember writing. After a chaotic scene involving a general's violent outburst, Levira returns to the library, confused, and realizes both she and Malar were inside the story. They remain unsure of how to retrieve the book. In Chapter 14, Telcha and Hellet discuss the ghosts they communicate with Telcha expressing concern about Hellet's increasing involvement with them. Hellet remains unfazed, acknowledging that the ghosts have improved their lives. Later, Selcha and Lutna travel into the city, where Lutna's naivety and kindness contrast with Selcha's growing mistrust of the royal world. Selcha is confronted by Prince Akron and his twin Baston, who humiliate her, but she hides her anger. After a sharp rebuke from a palace official, the two leave the palace, and Selcha seeks solace in the less glamorous parts of the city. In Chapter 15, Selcha and Lutna visit the royal palace's subterranean chambers where the Ganado work. Lutna introduces Selcha to the Ganado, who serve the palace servants and perform dangerous tasks. Selcha learns about the gas room and is led there by Lutna and Jar. They meet Hassin, a large Ganar who explains the methylene gas used to power the city's lights and the differences in how it affects different species. Selcha experiences the energizing effects of the gas, which is crucial for the Ganar, and reveals that her brother sent her to explore this facility, seeking to change the world. In Chapter 16, Arpix and the group return to their camp where Clovis is injured and bleeding. As they discuss the situation, Ever reveals that Levira and Malar were trapped in assistants which were destroyed by skier warriors. Clovis remains focused on finding the weapon buried beneath the city ruins, while Arpix, in pain from his throat, reflects on the grief of their lost comrades. The Kneath Clovis continues her harsh and tactical approach, showing little compassion for the group's emotional pain. Arpix, deeply affected by the loss, is left contemplating the heavy cost of survival. In Chapter 17, Ever, Arpix, and Carol discover skier warriors hauling Cradillacks up the plateau. As the creatures begin to break free, Clovis charges but is badly injured. Evar and Arpix help her retreat into tunnels with one Cradillak attacking them. Arpix reveals he poisoned the creatures with mercury. The group realizes Salamanda is missing. Evar and Arpix search for her, navigating tight tunnels and hearing strange noises. They eventually find Salamanda, alive and sheltered by a mysterious creature, Wentworth, who killed the Cradillaks. Salamanda believes Wentworth was sent by Ute to protect her. In Chapter 18, Levira and Malar reflect on past betrayals, with Malar defending his actions. Levira re-enters the story, aiming to control the narrative, and follows Avar into a dance, seeking to win his heart and change her fate. However, as the story shifts, Levira realizes her need for independence and releases Ever's hand, regaining control. She leaves the ballroom and decides to carve her own path, with a sense of clarity deepening her grip on the story. In the hall, she encounters a mysterious child who disrupts the narrative, causing the world to vanish when the child touches her. In Chapter 19, Telcha and her brother Hellet venture into an abandoned city, where Hellet reveals his plan to release a special gas that will put the humans and Kneath to sleep while sparing the Gunnar, who are immune. They navigate a tunnel system, with Telcha reflecting on the magnitude of their task and her growing discomfort with the plan. The gas will disrupt the city's gas supply, causing lights and stoves to go dark, giving the Gunnar a choice of freedom or rebellion. As they reach a chamber, Telcha struggles with the physical and ethical weight of their mission. In Chapter 20, Telcha reflects on her life's drastic changes since being brought to the library, where she remains a slave despite its comforts. She and her brother, Hellet, are on a risky mission to disrupt the gas supply to the city of Krath, aiming to incapacitate its inhabitants and give the Gunnar a chance at freedom. After navigating treacherous caves, Telcha aids in releasing an alchemical substance into the gas flow, risking their lives to give the Gunnar a chance to seize control. As the gas spreads, Telcha's doubts grow, but the choice is made. She and Hellet prepare to face the consequences. In Chapter 21, Arpix, Carol, and Clovis make their way out of the mine, where the Cradillaks are killed by Wentworth. Arpix tends to Clovis's injuries, removing her armor to treat her wounds. As he works, Ever warns him about Clovis's difficult past and her difficulty trusting others, suggesting she might have feelings for Arpix. The group discusses their next steps, speculating on the intentions of the skier and the significance of their location. Ever notices something familiar about the statue of the Queen, and the group realizes it resembles someone they know, Carlotte, hinting at a deeper connection. In Chapter 22, Ever reflects on his past encounter with Carlotte, a human he found while escaping a burning library. She had been captive to Kenneth, but must have escaped and traveled to it through time via the exchange. The group discusses their next steps, with Clovis advocating for war to take control of the library's technology, which she believes is the key to winning wars. Carol debates the ideological war tied to the library's origin, while Ever remains uncertain. The discussion shifts to Wentworth, Ute's cat, who had been sent to guide them but was mostly indifferent until summoned. The cat's sudden appearance offers a hint of hope. In Chapter 23, Levira, encased in armor, approaches a tower, reflecting on her attempt to explore the roles of rescuer and captive in stories. As she nears her goal, the White Child appears, an enigmatic figure who has thwarted her attempts before. The child's presence disrupts Levira's grasp on the story, and they engage in a tense exchange. The White Child identifies herself as Yolanda, Ute's lost daughter. Levira realizes her connection to the child, but before she can act, she is pulled into the assistant's world. Malar urges her to jump into the pool, where the true choice is made not with reason, but with commitment to love and belief. In Chapter 24, Telcha witnesses a disturbing transformation at the library entrance, where assistants tear themselves apart to reveal two white children. She follows them through the city, puzzled by their sudden appearance. As Telcha struggles to catch up, she finds the city eerily silent, the gas from the library causing widespread slumber. In the temple, she discovers a horrifying scene of dead Gunnar, realizing the gas has killed many. Overcome with guilt, she confronts the two ghosts, Hellet's former companions, who are now revealed as the orchestrators of the disaster. When they vanish into the temple, Telcha, enraged, vows to find them. In Chapter 25, Telcha surveys the ruined city, gripped by guilt and anger over the destruction caused by the gas. She fears the fallout for the surviving Gunnar and the blame they'll face. Returning to the mountain, she stumbles upon a strange place, the Exchange, after being pulled through a mysterious portal by an assistant. Here, she encounters a dark sphere that shifts shapes, symbolizing the power of imagination and loss. The assistant reveals that the two ghosts have gone into the future, advising Selcha to let them be. She learns the tragic truth from Helot. The library itself is the cause of their destruction. In Chapter 26, Arpix tends to Clovis's wounds, reflecting on his teacher's lessons about science and inquiry. He and Clovis discuss the mystery of the Skier and the boundary stones, which seem to prevent the creatures from crossing. Arpix realizes they need Wentworth, a cat with unexpected abilities, to help capture a Skier for study. After a tense wait, Wentworth returns with a Skier, demonstrating the physical dangers of breaching the boundary. Arpix collects a sample of the Skier's remains in a bowl, which reveals a strange reaction, potentially leading them to the source of the Skier's behavior. In Chapter 27, Ever and the group continue their search for the source of the Skier protection. Arpix uses a bowl of Skier blood to guide them, but progress is slow, and Clovis's condition worsens. Ever struggles with helplessness, feeling frustration as he watches his sister suffer. As night falls, the Skier approach the perimeter, but Clovis, despite her illness, stands against them, pushing them back. The group uncovers a rusted iron sphere deep underground which creates a repulsion field against the Skier. With the sphere in hand, Clovis suggests taking the war to the enemy, and the group prepares to find Ute, their next step in the battle. In Chapter 28, Levira and Malar emerge from the portal, where they encounter Mayland and Starvel, Ever's brothers. They discuss the library's war and the role of memory, with Mayland suggesting that history and knowledge may need to be erased to break the cycle of destruction. Malar, skeptical of Mayland's philosophy, aligns himself with Levira, asserting that he'll follow her side, despite the complexities. The conversation shifts as an assistant arrives, requesting the book Levira holds. The chapter ends with Levira pondering her next move, torn between the brothers' arguments and her own beliefs about the library. In Chapter 29, Arpix and the group continue their journey through dangerous terrain, wary of dust bears and the Skierflyer attacks. Arpix, who leads, reflects on the group's struggles and personal tensions, particularly with Jost's insistence on controlling the orb. As they near the library, the Skier launch a violent rock attack, injuring several, including Milan. Despite the chaos, Arpix rescues Jella, who has a serious ankle injury. The group barely escapes the second barrage, with Evar carrying Jella to safety. Arpix, facing the harsh reality of their situation, is determined not to leave anyone behind, even in the face of overwhelming danger. In Chapter 30, Ever and the humans reach the central library, where they seek the healing circle for their injuries. Ever leads them across dangerous shelving, with Clovis in critical condition. As they reach the circle, it heals some injuries, but Clovis remains in a coma. Meanwhile, Ever hears destructive noises and encounters a smaller automaton that had previously pursued him. Ever narrowly avoids being crushed, using his sword to fend off the creature. As the automaton closes in, the iron orb in Ever's satchel seems to deactivate the machine, freezing it. Ever is left badly injured but alive, realizing the orb's power. In Chapter 31, Levira refuses to let the assistant Helot destroy the book she wrote, despite his warnings about its dangerous nature and the potential to leave her a ghost in Ever's time. Malar supports her decision. The assistant allows them to leave through a portal, which Levira hopes will take them to Ever, but they instead arrive in a grim, book-lined aisle of the library. There, they encounter an old man, whom Levira deduces is a king, though she feels foolish for not recognizing him immediately. The man is suspicious and calls for guards, setting the stage for potential conflict. In Chapter 32, Clovis, against Arpix's advice, insists on searching for her injured brother Evar, who is missing. Despite her sickness, she remains strong and determined, and Arpix reluctantly follows her, realizing Ever's loss would have dire consequences. They track a trail of destruction caused by a large metal automaton, which Arpix identifies as the same creature that previously chased them, though smaller. As they approach, they find Ever injured and struggling to walk. They assist him, with Arpix keeping a tactical approach to avoid further dangers. The chapter ends with them preparing to carry Ever back. In Chapter 33, Levira confronts King Oenold, who recognizes her as the duster girl Ute appointed. He orders her arrest, accusing her of being Ute's assassin. Levira is captured by Oenold's guards and is severely mistreated. As they move through the library, Livira notices strange cracks in the floor, suggesting something unusual has occurred. She is taken to the center circle, where Onold demands she use magical doors to help him escape the library. Livira, fearing for her life, activates a book's magic, enveloping the area in darkness. In her escape, she encounters a gruesome scene involving the remains of a familiar figure, Gevin, who urges her to run. In Chapter 34, after Ever's injury heals, the group continues their journey through the library. They revisit the automaton to retrieve the white sword, with Ever and Clovis determined not to leave it behind. They encounter a Skier warrior guarding a door. Clovis wants to fight, but Ever steps forward, using the element of surprise to kill the creature. He feels little pride in the kill, conflicted about taking its life. As the group progresses, they face a choice: stay in the chamber or risk being trapped. Ever decides to stay behind to prevent the door from closing, leading to a tense confrontation with Carol. Ultimately, Ever's actions keep the group moving forward. In Chapter 35, Arpix, once cautious and reserved, is reluctantly thrust into action by external pressures. While following a magical cat through a library, Arpix reflects on his past, his lack of self-confidence, and his complicated feelings toward women, especially Clovis, a bold and direct Conith. After a brief confrontation with 3 Skier warriors, the group discovers humans hiding in the library, including Nira, a former acquaintance of Jella. They learn that Ute, a mysterious figure, has been surviving by reaching back in time for food. As the group reunites, a strange crack appears in the ground, emitting black mist, signaling ominous events ahead. In Chapter 36, Livira attempts to escape, but is shot and captured by King Oenold's forces. He threatens her with mutilation to force her to open a door, intending to return to Krath City. Oenold dismisses reports of defeat and plans to reclaim his throne. As tension builds, a skeletal creature emerges, causing chaos. Livira flees, but encounters Oenold's guards, who are soon confronted by Malar. After a brief confrontation, Malar is shot, but continues to move toward his opponent. Livira helps him as they're trapped by rising smoke from Jons's weapon, only to be saved by a mysterious figure. In Chapter 37, Ivar, Clovis, and others encounter a strange black mist emerging from a crack in the library. Ute explains that the mist can manifest one's fears and become dangerous if misunderstood. Ever learns that fears, even seemingly negative ones, could have been good if properly managed. Ute also reveals that the mysterious Ganar automata may be hunting them, possibly connected to past enemies using the exchange. As the group prepares to search for Livira, Wentworth the cat begins leading them, but he heads toward a troubling area, suggesting Livira may be nearby, though the smell of blood raises concerns. In Chapter 38, Arpix and the group, including Ute's followers and 3 Kneath, move through the library towards Livira. Tension is high as Ute's group is shaken by their harrowing journey. Arpix reflects on Livira's impact, noting how her care for others binds people to her. He is also unsettled by his growing feelings for Clovis. A conversation with Carol reveals concerns about future choices, especially as the library and its factions may soon force difficult decisions. As the group hurries on, shots and screams erupt, and Arpix hears Ever shout, "Livira!" signaling a sudden shift in their mission. In Chapter 39, Livira mourns Malar's death, torn between saving his body from being eaten and condemning others to die. As she struggles with grief, she reunites with Ivar, Milan, Jella, Salamanda, and Arpix, who all mourn Malar. Clovis, overcome with anger, vows vengeance, but Livira explains Malar's killer is already dead. The group learns that Yamala was killed by Mayland, deepening their sorrow. Livira confronts Ute about his loss and tries to push Clovis away from seeking vengeance, fearing the consequences. Yolanda interrupts with a warning of imminent danger, pushing the group into action. In Chapter 40, Ever reunites with Livira, believing she was dead but finding her alive. He experiences overwhelming relief, but is soon confronted with the reality of their situation. They learn of Malar's death, and Ever is reminded of the dangers they face. Yolanda, Ute's daughter, leads them to a reading room, revealing disturbing truths about the mechanism and the dangers of using it. The group faces the threat of a massive automaton while discussing the role of the exchange in entangling their fates. Livira, driven by guilt, decides to return to help her people despite the risks. Evar, torn, decides to follow her. In Chapter 41, Arpix steps into the mechanism's void, a place that consumes time and space. He meets two figures, Irad and Jaspeth, brothers with conflicting visions for the future of the library. Irad proposes an all-access infinite library for enlightenment, while Jaspeth warns of its dangers, advocating for wisdom earned over time. Ute arrives and offers a third option, compromise, though he acknowledges its failures. As the discussion intensifies, a disturbing vision reveals Ute witnessing a massacre of Kneath at the hands of Onold's soldiers. Ute urges retreat, fearing even greater destruction to come. In Chapter 42, Levira observes Irad and Jaspeth speak about her role in causing a crack that could destroy the world. She reflects on the harm caused by unintended mistakes and the weight of Ute's past actions, particularly his involvement in a massacre. As the vision fades, Levira pulls Ever into a shared space to be alone with him, away from the ongoing conflict. They embrace, and Levira admits her mixed feelings about the blame for the tragedy. Despite their fears, they vow to face whatever comes together, sharing a deep emotional kiss. In Chapter 43, Ever emerges from the mechanism into chaos, where soldiers have captured Ute's people. After a grenade explosion, he reunites with Levira, and Clovis arrives, driven by revenge. Ever is shot and captured, but Clovis rescues him. Back at the mechanism, Levira tends to Ever's wounds, while tensions rise between Ute and Clovis. Starvel, revealing his disdain for the library, explains his actions. Evar near death shares a quiet moment with Levira. The automaton breaks through the shelves, and the mechanism's door opens to reveal an assistant, while Clovis prepares for a final confrontation. In Chapter 44, Selcha reflects on 1,000 years of wandering, driven by guilt and revenge for her brother's manipulation and the tragedy she caused. She becomes a trader of knowledge, using her resources to hunt the ghosts who orchestrated her brother's downfall. After centuries, a messenger construct alerts her that her enemies have been found. She tracks them to a reading room where, to her shock, the Canaith and humans she sought for vengeance are wounded, with time claiming them before she can. Just as Selcha's anger resurges, Helot emerges, now an assistant, and intervenes, halting her revenge. In Chapter 45, Levira confronts Helot and the vengeful construct created by Selcha. Helot reveals his involvement in a city's destruction tied to Levira's past with Ever. The automaton is defeated when Clovis and Starve use a powerful orb, but the room fills with smoke. Clovis plans to confront Ute, while Levira tends to a dying Ever. As tensions rise, different factions choose their paths, with Mayland urging Levira to let go of her attachment to Ever. Levira defies him and steps forward, determined to follow Ever. Meanwhile, Selcha and Helot face an unexpected reunion. In Chapter 46, the rain continues for 40 days, filling the long, dry basin and bringing life back to the plains. Ever and Levira share a moment of peace, but Ever senses something is wrong, feeling watched. Levira, determined to protect their story, steps away from him. Meanwhile, Lord Algar, after a close call with Kneath attackers, reads one of the books taken from the librarian Ute keeps. The book causes cracks to form in the library's structure, alarming Algar. He questions a prisoner, Arpix, about the book, sensing it holds secrets that could be dangerous.